Painting with light.
Four years ago, the British Quantel company developed the Paintbox, a computer designed to produce television graphics. Broadcasters quickly took it up to create their weather maps, graphs and title sequences. Some months ago, we introduced David Hockney to a Paintbox, the first serious artist to try the machine. What he was confronted with was a perfectly plain work surface coupled to an electronic pen. The artist works directly onto a television monitor, and he can summon up palettes of colour, mix them or alter them at will, even select different widths of brush or pen. Hockney began to discover that the Paintbox could be more than a tool for designing graphics. He saw it as a new medium, and one which offered the artist a new facility, that of literally painting with light. For the onlooker, this experiment turned out to be a rare chance to follow the evolution of an image from start to finish. Not a painted canvas reproduced by a film or video camera, but a picture made directly onto the television screen. By the time our camera crew were ready and David Hockney's microphone put on and connected, he was already deeply absorbed in the Paintbox, oblivious to the lights and the people around him. For nearly 8 hours, almost without stopping, he worked on the computer. We've condensed the images he made during the course of that day, and later David Hockney recorded the commentary you will hear.
Well, I'm just trying out this machine here. That little cross represents the point. I'm actually drawing on just a blank board, and it leaves no marks behind. So what you're actually seeing is the original. There's no piece of paper left. You're not drawing on a piece of paper. You're drawing actually directly onto this TV screen where you're seeing it now, in a way. There is no distance between you and the mark being made, actually. This is the mark being made on the screen. And it doesn't exist in any other form. This is a palette. You have to keep going, finding a color, finding a way. There's different marks you can make, even though you're making them with all the same instrument. That's a bit like a kind of old-fashioned ballpoint pen. There you press paint, wash, and so on. I don't know what I'm doing. Actually, I'm just...
Bit of experiment.
Yeah.
The light in the eyes doesn't bother you too much. If it stops drawing like that, it's just going to tire.
Yeah, I know. This is merely a piece of lighted glass you're looking at. And of course, that's the medium you're drawing with, essentially. Light on glass. And the only equivalent where you'd get colors like this, it did occur to me, is in stained glass itself, which is using also light and glass. And you can get a richness of color, of course, that even paint can't give. It has a kind of glow Here it has almost a neon glow. I'm just going to try layers. I'm going to draw with layers, see what happens, make it something eventually, but I like the layers. Here it's like old television you're watching, the artist at work. But in the old way, the camera would have had to have been looking over your shoulder. And whatever colour you were putting on a canvas, it wouldn't come out the pure colour you're putting it on, because the distance of the camera from the piece of paper would cause it to be different. Here, there isn't any distance. That colour is the colour made. You're mixing it there. These were all drawn from my head, actually. I didn't make any notes beforehand, which you can probably tell why. Remember, I'm not saying this as I'm drawing. This sound is recorded later, because I couldn't talk and draw at the same time. I couldn't be giving a commentary at all, especially this way, because you've to really, you're concentrating in a weird way. I mean, if I look down when I'm making this mark, as I said, there's nothing there. So you've to keep it in your head as you're accumulating a scheme of things and watch it draw. I want to mix a colour now.
Okay. It's easier to do it with a large brush to start with, so I should... no, yeah. I should put paint on.
Paint on?
Yeah, that's it. And select a sort of harsh job at the bottom there. Right. Okay, so
now just take a colour.
Pick a colour, any colour. Right, now if you slosh some down, there you go. It's the peripheries there where it's overlapping the white, you're actually getting a paler tone of that. You can select that. So
I can still keep mixing, can't I?
Better on mixing.
Let me see, I haven't tried the mixing too much. Tell you what I'm trying to get a viridian green.
Okay, so if you can perceive any tiny sort of point there which has something like the colour you want, by pressing down at that point. It can be really very accurate.
If you're drawing with coloured crayons, they're all laid out in front of you. You just pick up the one you see. Here, it's not quite like that. So you tend to think of what you can do with one colour first and then use another, whereas with different crayons you might be swapping them about in your hand a great deal faster than you could here. These are just crude beginnings, really. But I can see there's a lot of possibilities. One thing you can do on this that you can't do with paint is, of course, you can put a very brilliant colour, very brilliant blue, and you could draw on it with a brilliant red. Well, of course, in paint, if you put the red on top of the blue, you're going to get, even if you use thick red on thin blue, and even if it's dry, you're going to make the red slightly into purple and so on. Well, that doesn't happen here. You can put it on thin, or you can put it on, as it were, thick. Therefore, the moment you're changing the actual surface of the glass all the time. It isn't layered. It's just, that's now going on top of the glass, the red, there you can see. Well, it's certainly as pure a colour as you wish it to be. Because, in a sense, when you put the white there, it's taking off the red underneath it, isn't it? It's removing it. The computer's removing that. In a sense, you could go on forever drawing each one of these, because you can just keep changing it, take everything out. I mean, in a sense, if this was on paper, there's a limit to what you can do, because even if you decided to alter all the shapes, I mean, after you put down two colours on top of one another, if you put a third down, you're going to get mud, really. Nothing would glow. I think it does open up, as I say, a lot of possibilities. It seems to me the best thing you can do on it is draw, which would make it more interesting, because drawing is more interesting than photography. Ultimately, it's more real as well. It is a new medium, I've no doubt that it is a new medium, and it makes the television different kind of medium. It could be more honest in the sense, as I say, it acknowledges surface. The picture on the screen is a perfectly honest picture in the sense that it's made up of all the material that's making the picture on the screen. I mean, it's made that way. I get bolder because I realize more and more what you can do, how you can remove something. You wouldn't draw exactly like this on a piece of paper, because, as I say, you can't. There's a limit to how many layers you can put on a drawing, in a sense. It simply will go dull after it. But I think what you're seeing here is me simply exploring it, what you can do. This is, I think this is Pembroke Studios. I was trying to remember where I'd come from that morning. Can you just put that away?
Yeah, sure.
And stop this. I was trying to draw Francis Bacon, who I'd seen on television the night before, when he was saying he was an optimist about nothing. He said, "Why I'm an optimist. About what? About nothing." Which amused me, because I thought, well, you could be a pessimist about nothing as well. But I was trying to draw a portrait. It all fails, this, I think. Well, they left it in. I suppose it's like sketchbooks or something. You do some things and you abandon them. You don't carry on with the drawing. As you can see, the drawing all gets a bit lost. I'm trying to do something I frankly did not know how to do it in the end. If I was doing it with paint, you'd know ways to do it, how you make subtle differences in colour, you know, just a slight difference. I haven't used this machine long enough to find out exactly how to do it. There must be a way you could do it if you want, but I was trying to use cross-hatching techniques, one colour on top of another, leaving bits underneath, which would give you subtle things. But it didn't really work. I didn't think it worked. Well, I gave up on that and thought it was all messy. And so you just carry on, and I alter it all, take away. So now you're just seeing me filling in colour, as I say, but the colour is literally happening here on the screen, which is the exciting thing about it, really. Normally, if you're putting on a great big wash, you've got a great big brush to do it with, so the hand holds it differently. One problem here is no matter what kind of mark you're making, you're still gripping this same little ballpoint pen. Well, you know, no artist is quite used to that. Turning into David Graves now, who was with us because I abandoned the portrait of Francis Bacon. David Graves is an optimist about something, like I am. David Grays I'm forever working with, so I know him very well, and his face I know. I mean, Francis I don't know at all. I'd only seen him on TV, and I realised unless I've looked at a face, looked around it a lot, been with it a lot, I mean, no, you can't do portraits. That's why I don't... You can't really just have somebody come in, sit down, and then you draw them. I mean, what would you know about... You don't know enough about them. It's harder to think in volumes with this drawing, I know. Very blue eyes here, which must be a trick of the camera. My eyes aren't that blue. Oh, I see, it's the reflection of this blue. Well, you can start with any colour you want. And naturally, you know, I'm not interested in subduing the colours, because it seems to me what this is all about is these wonderful colours that you can use, and that you don't normally see. I think this is a drawing of Pembroke Studios in London, just again from memory. I'm drawing the inside and the outside. The red on the left was the wall outside. This is a green chair in the inside, and so on. I was trying to get into perspective ideas that I'd been exploring in other pictures. But I haven't quite explored it enough to really develop it here yet. Although I think that's, again, the area. The moment you leave the camera behind, you can forget perspective. And we could all start seeing the world in a much more interesting way. You have to realise I'm drawing just from kind of doodling around, but yeah, they're discovering. It's just discovering what you're doing. So I put a car in here that you can see the front and back of the car. It means you're walking past it. It was parked outside in the street. So there's a lot of cars parked in the street, that's why I draw it. I think now I'd draw a table. I simply removed the chairs and decided to put a table there, put some flowers on it. I usually put flowers there. Again, in paint, that line would be showing through, and it isn't showing through much. It's no need to show through at all if I really put it on densely. The pictures just grew and I followed them. What happens, I mean, I just kept, as I realized you could change it more and more, you just simply let, I just simply let one thing grow into another, that's all. Eventually we put a horse comes into the room and the car disappears. I suppose some people might think, oh, this is all much too bright. But again, you'll only think that because of what other pictures have done to us, always distancing us and always therefore making colour less important. Here comes a horse coming into the picture with its 2 feet, trying to gallop in. You know, it's just obviously now you just start following some of the shapes you've made, and you suddenly see it. You made it as one thing, and you suddenly see it make it into another, which any artists would do. I mean, most things when you begin a painting, you don't really know what it's going to look like. There's a point where you let the marks take over. And here then you can take a bit and make it bigger. Then when you put it back, it will naturally, what you're drawing here now is a finer line, or it will appear finer. I think this was the thinnest line you could draw, and it would probably be the thinnest line that would appear a line on this TV screen. You know, I'm only exploring one or two aspects of this machine. I rejected some of the technical tricks it could do, because it seemed to me what's much more interesting is making a picture with your hand. You decide, well, the pot is on the edge of the table, so you literally draw it on the edge, and so on. You see, I suppose if you turned up the colour on your ordinary TV set now, it would glow even more, wouldn't it? There, yeah. Okay, put it back. You start getting much greater illusions now, don't you?
Jolly well do. Don't
Yeah,
you? I mean,
yeah.
It's fabulous, that top.
There we are, so it all changed. It's a horse galloping in to eat the flowers now. But in a way, what I realise as well is it isn't just the finished picture you are concerned with, it's actually what's fascinating is watching it being done. Now I'm putting the shadows of the table in the car. The car's disappeared, yeah. I suppose with this technique you've finished any time you want, really. I mean, or because if you go on and on, all that happens is you just keep altering the whole picture. You suddenly take something out again. I mean, if I'd have gone on and on, the horse would have gone. There might be another car over there. There might be something else. I mean, there's a point where maybe you just think it's dense, and so you stop.
Fantastic.
Very exciting.
We saved them away.
Nothing there.
As a BBC book linked to the series.